Hey everyone, I apologize for the delay. We're having some technical difficulties with the Zoom account. Um, Margaret, are either of your presenters here?
Yes, Anne is on the call, so she'll need to be, I guess, promoted when, it's her turn. I just emailed her
Margaret, you're on mute.
about that. Oh, am I
Um,
am I
I
still
can
on mute?
I can hear Margaret Lee.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. I can't hear Margaret either, even though it says that you're unmuted. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
mhm.
Okay. And you can try speaking. Jake and Margaret can't be heard.
I I I'm talking now. Can you hear
I
me?
can't hear any of you.
I
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Can you make sure that your speaker settings are right?
You might need to exit and re-enter because
You can hear me or you can't hear me?
we can all hear one another as well.
Mhm.
I'm putting something in the chat.
Jake, who needs to exit and re-enter? You say something now.
Test test.
Testing.
There we go.
If you can hear me, so Anne is on the call.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, thank you everyone for your patience. So sorry for the late start. So we're just going to jump right into it. First, the agenda was posted late, so we need to approve it. So I motion to approve the agenda as is, which consists of two presentations.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, great. That passes. So Margaret, you said Anne is the presenter?
correct.
Great. If we can make Anne a panelist so she can join. And Anne is joining us from the DC Office of Planning, explaining the
You all
criteria
hear me?
considered. Yes,
Yes.
Great.
Great.
and welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight and for your patience.
No, believe me, I thought it was my fault because I'm notorious for not being able to handle technology. Um, let me see how I share my screen, if that's possible. Share screen. Okay. And can you all let me know if you can see that?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So oops. See what I mean? I'm not good with technology. I was invited to join you all tonight, and I'm really thankful for that because it gives us a chance to say hello to each other and put a face to a name. And to give you, I was going to give a sort of a broad brush overview of preservation and get a little bit more detailed, but open it up to questions because I think that's where a lot of the information will come out. So obviously our goal sorry, my bar at the top, there we go. at preservation is to, now I don't know how to move my slides. There we go. Okay, there we go. Preserve and enhance the architecture, the historic architecture of DC, and to help guide the changes that happen in our city's historic districts and to historic resources. Just touching briefly on all that we do, in addition to the permitting stuff that we'll get to, we review every DC government project, from libraries, schools, police stations, fire stations, parks, rec centers, etc. We review every federal project in the district, which takes a lot of time because we have so many federal buildings. We run our homeowner grant program, which has recently been updated to include all historic districts. Formerly, it was limited to selected historic districts, and the amount of grants has gone up to $50,000 per property. So that's always nice to know. But they are targeted towards lower and lower income residents. So there are economic criteria that have to be documented. Obviously, being in the Office of Planning, we do some planning as well for preservation. We, of course, follow the comp plan for the city. We have our own historic preservation plan, and we have ward heritage guides for each of the city's wards. Enforcement is a big part of what we do, and we rely on folks like you to let us know when there's something going on that shouldn't be. Most of what we do is the unauthorized work, where we issue stop work orders, violation notices, correction orders, that kind of thing. Although we are authorized by the government to cite properties that are not being maintained. Archaeology, which is fun and exciting and the most interesting part of our office, if you ask me, although I am no expert, but very active archaeology program. So getting into the heart of what we do, we are the Historic Preservation Office. We are within the Office of Planning, and we serve as the staff to the mayorally appointed Historic Preservation Review Board. And what we generally do is work with property owners and managers, everyone from homeowners up to the federal government, to explain our process and to help guide them through it. And I don't know if you can see the last little bit on the screen. For me, I have something blocking it. But the bread and butter of our work is to approve permits for work that is delegated by our regulations to us under what we call expedited review. We used to call it over-the-counter review when we had a counter and people would come in person, but now mostly permitting takes place online. So expedited review is what we do. And this is what you would expect. Probably it's the everyday type of permit application, everything from windows and doors, fences. For commercial properties, we do cafe seating and canopies, awnings, solar panels, etc. Our staff of 7 project reviewers reviews somewhere in the 5,500 permits per year. And I did the math, and that's about 800 permits per person per year. So we like to stay busy. 90% of what we do is under this expedited review. The other 10% is what goes to HPRB. And these are the more complex projects, ones that we are not delegated to approve at the staff level. So that's new construction, most additions, visible additions, things that don't meet our guidelines, but the owners still want to see if they can make their case to the HPRB. So we always encourage applicants to consult with us as soon as possible in their process. And then we get to a point where we think they're ready to submit for HPRB review. So they do that. They do the public, we do the public noticing. And then, of course, step number 4 is where we rely on our partners in ANCs. And then if in the case, we'll move forward to HPRB. excuse me, for their review. So more about ANC review. You all know this. I mean, we, at least I, as a reviewer, rely on ANC input. You all are the eyes and ears in the community, and you have a feel for what is appropriate. And our board does the same and is required by law to give great weight to what you all have to say. Of course, this is somewhat limited because we can't get into all of the details of what makes a project correct or appropriate for your neighborhood, because you all get to take into consideration things like parking and noise and trash and things like that, and numbers of units, and that is not something that the Historic Preservation Review Board considers. At any rate, I'm sure you all are familiar with our public notice process. I hope so, at least. We're failing if you're not. ANCs get a 45-day period to review projects, and if they don't have enough time before they've received notice, you all can request a delay. We always encourage you to discuss it with us if you have questions or want to talk through a project. And your ANC resolutions are fine, so you don't need to know how to write them. And this is the part that I honestly really don't like how this is worded. I mean, this is written for somebody with a PhD, about what's compatible and what's incompatible, and what the board is looking for to make decisions about whether a project is appropriate or not. But the long and the short of it is that compatible doesn't mean it has to match what's in the historic district, but it has to be harmonious. That's the word used. And incompatible doesn't mean it's that it's not different and that's not interesting or creative, but it does have to have some sort of relationship to its immediate context. So in other words, whenever, we get asked, is it compatible or not? Well, every case is different. Thank you for shaking your head. It's really hard to quantify, qualify, a specific set of how we review a project, because every building is different. We certainly have reviewed enough row houses where we have a body of approvals behind us of what the board would approve, that we know what to look for, and the board knows what to look for. And these are some of those things. So they're general, and it's hard to sort of, well, you'll see the next project that's on the agenda is a really interesting one, where all of these things are part of the review, and I won't comment on it since it's up for your discussion. But it's a very, it's a current case that introduces each of these aspects of reviews. So here are just a couple of, because it's boring to look at words, here are some pictures of projects that have been completed in historic districts and were approved by the board. The one on the left, both of the tan colored buildings are new construction, as is the brick part to the right that sticks out a little. All of that is one building. I think they did a pretty good job of making it blend into a row house district. The scale of the windows is a little off, but there's only so much that we can force a developer to do if it's determined compatible by the board and they are approved, as designed. The one on the right, I think, is a lovely example, very compatible. Not 100% matchy. It's got glass up in the pent roof up there, and it really is a nice infill construction. Compatible or not, I'm sure you can make a guess as to which one we would consider compatible. Obviously, this one's not in a historic district, but this is essentially what we try to avoid, and what not every developer, but a lot of developers start out at, when we first start consulting with them. So we have to talk it down and scale it down and get it to a place where we think the board will approve it, or where the owner is just ready to move forward. So just so you know, every project that you see is probably not how it started. Again, the one on the right is a good infill. It's you know, it's kind of clunky, but it is compatible. These two, I think, are particularly lovely. They're more modern interpretations than the last one, but perfectly compatible. So these were all approved by the board, and they are new construction. And I'm sure in your ANC, there's not so much new construction that's going to happen because you don't have that much vacant lot. But you know, rear additions, roof additions, and for both small, you know, single family residences and the many apartment buildings in the area would certainly come under our review. That's all I have, which is really quick. But I thought I would open it up to discuss anything, or you know, listen to what your questions are, and get any feedback that you think is important for me to take back to our office as well.
And thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful, and I really appreciate all of the visuals that you provided. I don't have any immediate questions, so I'm just going to open it up to the other commissioners. Commissioner Falskini.
Thanks, Commissioner Dixon, and thank you, Anne, for your presentation. There have been a couple times in recent history in our neighborhood and other ones close by to us where sometimes historical preservation seems to take precedence over people's ability to live and to live in affordable housing. So there's a good example, I think, up in Mount Pleasant, where there was a historical apartment building that had some balconies that needed to be rebuilt because they were falling apart. And the Historic Preservation Board took an extremely, I think, too literal interpretation of what the preservation was that was needed. And it ended up costing that apartment building millions of dollars in order to maintain when it could have been done just as well visually without having to have original sort of moldings and construction. And that cost ended up driving the affordability out for many of the residents, and several had to move. And I see this as kind of, I see the work that's being done by the Historic Preservation Board is important, but not when it comes at the cost of people actually being able to live and afford their homes. And so I guess my question is, to what extent is that taken under consideration by the Historic Preservation Board? People's need to actually continue to own and live in their homes. And can the Historic Preservation Board try to do more to work with the ANCs in our neighborhoods in order to make sure that the adherence to rigid guidelines around historical preservation don't come at the cost of affordability and people being able to stay in their homes?
Well, you brought up a tricky one, and this is a co-op bill. It was a TOPA, I believe. The tenants bought their units, and it's I'm not sure it's condos or co-ops, but a couple things. First of all, there was legislation through the council for specifically to address this building, to allow the owners of individual units to use our grant program. Previously, only single family home, like homes, qualified, not condos. So we understood. I mean, we took into consideration the fact that affordability was important here, and went to the council to make sure that funds were available. And these are grant funds; they don't pay them back. So that was taken into account. It's a unique situation. There's also in our laws and the historic preservation law and the regulations spell out if there is a case of economic hardship, and owners should use this provision if they need to. And obviously, our mayor is affordability of housing is a very important issue for her, and as her staff, we hear this message. So I think that it played into what happened with the balcony situation. But there certainly is an economic hardship route that owners can take to get projects approved by the board. And this is sort of, I mean, we want people to stay in their homes too. And it also comes up not just with affordability and, but also with aging in place and needing elevators or needing accessibility from the front that a stoop doesn't provide. So while we have to follow our regulations, and we usually make recommendations to our board as the staff, we make recommendations that follow our regulations. The board has the authority to make decisions. And if they make a decision that doesn't that doesn't go the direction that an applicant wants, the applicant can certainly appeal it as well. Another route they can take is to go to the mayor's agent, and the mayor's agent can take into consideration other laws and regulations and needs other than just historic preservation. And that is certainly a route that homeowners have gone to. That's a great question. And unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the building. It's certainly been in the press quite a bit.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm also drawing a blank, and I appreciate that. I don't know that I had all of the final details on how it had been resolved. So I do appreciate learning a little bit more about that. The other question that I had was that we recently wrote fairly recently, late last year, wrote a resolution in support of a business owner that was looking to build outdoor deck on top of their building's historically preserved building down on Florida on 18th Street. And I thought, at least, and I guess the whole commission agreed with me, that outdoor deck looked a heck of a lot better than the current white tent that's sitting up on top of their building. And we all unanimously passed a resolution saying that was the case, and are looking to do what we can to help support our businesses, and especially during that time, during the middle of the pandemic, when they really needed more outdoor space to get business. And yet that was rejected by the Historical Preservation Board with no explanation whatsoever to the ANC, at least, that had written this unanimous letter in support. And so I guess, sometimes it feels like we're writing these things into a black box and we don't necessarily get a whole lot of feedback. And in that case, I certainly didn't feel that our decision there was given great weight. And have some still kind of lingering questions about the extent to which that was actually given great weight.
Another good project to bring up. A lot of pandemic. A lot of the pandemic spurred a lot of projects that were not seen before. By staff or Historic Preservation Review Board or the public space, with streeteries, etc. And I think a lot of it, I think owners felt that because they had gotten the extra business on the outside that they needed during the pandemic, that they were entitled to keep it in some fashion. I'm not saying that's what happened in this specific case, but it's very hard to take away seating from a restaurant. They don't want to, reduce the number of seats that they have. However, the board did, and I don't remember, I know that the board did not approve the project. I don't remember how they responded to the ANC resolution specifically, but it's a very good reminder to me as the staff that during the presentation, during the public hearing, we should be reminding the board to go through the ANC resolution point by point, which sometimes they gloss over. And that's a very good reminder to me to remind them to do that, because you all spend your time writing these and having these meetings. So that I will take to heart, and I will take back to the staff. And this one, I honestly do think there is the potential for a rooftop canopy of some sort. What they presented was not it. I just think they didn't want to try to revise their drawings, because they own a lot more roof that wasn't right at the corner where they could have put the canopy. And our suggestion was to move it away from that corner, so it sort of sank back into that block a little bit and was a little less noticeable, and to lower it. It was really tall. But, that was what they came forward with, and they did not want to change. So I still think they have potential. So we'll see. We'll see.
Thank you. I know I've thrown 2 tough ones at you, so I really appreciate it. And I do appreciate what you all do, even if I ask tough questions.
No, I appreciate you're making very good points. So thank you.
Hi, thank you. Can you talk just a little bit more about the composition of the HPRB, how they're appointed, terms, and then also a little more about the mayor's agent that has come up recently in a school renovation that we've been involved in?
Okay. The HPRB is 9 members appointed by the mayor. The nominations come through the boards and commissions committee. They, to be frank, are very slow, and we have had issues trying to get our commission fully staffed. But there are requirements for who sits on it. There have to be 2 architects. There has to be an archaeologist, community members. I think those are the specified roles. So it is made up of professionals, non-professionals, who have an interest in preservation. In terms of the mayor's agent, the mayor's agent is an independent reviewer. It's technically the director of the Office of Planning, but she has delegated her role as the mayor's agent to an independent person who is a retired judge or lawyer. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on whether he's a judge or not. But he acts as the mayor's agent, and the cases that go before mayor's agent are ones where an applicant disagrees with the board's decision, either based on they just think the decision was wrong. They want to make the economic hardship claim if it wasn't fully established at HPRB, or it's a project of special merit. So those are the ways that they can go forward. Special merit would be, it could be a lot of different things, but it's often something that puts in a lot of new construction, but also does good preservation work. So our board wouldn't be able to approve perhaps a lot of new construction, but the mayor's agent could, and they could take into consideration the fact that they're also doing good preservation. It's certainly things like, if you're going to build a orphanage, or, a hospital, something that benefits the public, those would be aspects that meet that are special merit, and also projects that are of exceptional design. and that is for an architect and a developer or owner to make the case that their design is superior and should be approved, and that the board didn't see it or couldn't approve it because they are bound by regulation. They are bound by what's in print. So the mayor's agent has a little more flexibility. But those are they're very specific. It has to be a case of economic hardship, special merit, or they just disagreed with that the board was incorrect in making its decision. Those are the ways you go to the mayor's agent.
Is there a process if there's an objection to an HPRB approval by anyone? Is there an appeal process for that?
There is. That goes through the courts directly, though. That would be like an injunction, and I'm not a lawyer, so but you have to go through the court system for that process. But yes, people have done it. They certainly done it. I mean, 1800 Columbia, good example.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any further questions from commissioners?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Anne. This was very interesting, and I actually really love the premise, the compatibility part, and not that it has to exactly match, but be compatible and blend in, and at least not detract, but even enhance the character of the community. And so I think that's really a nice guideline there. So that makes me feel good about that. The only question I really had was if you could email me and I can send it to the other commissioners, the requirements for the grants, or a link on your website to the requirements. That would be fantastic, because I have not heard of that, and that sounds like a wonderful program. And one thing that I and all of us really deal with a lot of times are blighted buildings, some of which are historical properties, or at least older construction. And if we could possibly get some grant money flowing for that, that'd be fantastic. Or just it just sounds like a great resource for the community and lower income individuals and so forth. And I actually know also a number of young people in my SMD who are interested in owning properties and restoring them, so that might be a route that they could go to be able to do that. So
that's
anyway,
great. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you all. And you have my contact information, so please feel free to reach out. I'm terrible with the phone, but I will respond to email.
Great. And just
all right. I'm going to log off because I don't want to hear the next case, if that's okay. Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Okay. Next up is the presentation regarding 1836-1840 Kalorama Road. So if you are presenting, please raise your hand. I know Patrick is here, and I believe, yep, perfect. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, how are you doing here?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And then we can get started. I think Marty is going to introduce us here.
Yeah, hi. This is Marty Sullivan. I'm zoning counsel for Patrick on this project. So this is a special exception request for the BZA for lot occupancy to go to 70% lot occupancy. We're also asking special exception relief from a parking screening requirement. We end up always asking for this relief. There's a requirement that says if you have a building that's more than 2 units, any parking lot for that building has to be completely screened. And it's usually interpreted for buildings that abut an alley as just screening the alley portion of it. And it allows for 20-foot openings because you need openings for cars, obviously. And so the way people usually get around it is they put sometimes like a 1-foot wide fence or gate in the middle. And so there's less than 20 feet or no more than 20 feet on each side. And then you've met the requirement. But a better option is to ask for this relief, which the board usually grants, so that we can fit all the parking and other facilities that we need in there. So we're asking for relief from that as well. But the main request is 70%. We have the support of both immediate neighbors on each side of this project. Those letters are in the file, and there is it is an IZ project. It's 11 units, so there's going to be an inclusionary zoning unit and also a habitable penthouse contribution as well. Patrick.
Thank you, Marty, for that brief explanation of the relief. Just to kind of give a reminder, I know we've crossed the description of this project before, but this will be an 11-unit project taking place in about 16,400 square feet. One of those 11 units will be a 2-bedroom IZ unit located on the first floor. We will have an elevator that will allow access to the upper floors. The rest of the market rate units are predominantly larger and tend to cater to more of a downsizer, empty nester demographic, which is pretty prominent in this neighborhood among the young professionals. Figure out here. Apologize, I'm working from my oh, there we go. This is just a little bit of existing photos of what the project looks like. I know many of the members of the ANC, live very close to this site, and we're probably anxious to see something happen with it. By the way, we just closed on it yesterday, so we are now the contract owners of the site, and we'll start making some serious progress here soon. So here is kind of the zoning distinction for the site. You'll notice when we get further down into the floor plans that we've dissected, the first floor of the building actually extends a little bit further, closer to 70% lot occupancy relief. And the remainder of the building is much smaller than that and is more in line with a by right project. The reason we're seeking relief is because the front story of the building is around 8 feet, so we're not allowed to count a good portion of the first floor as a cellar, which traditionally is more of a free FAR. So some of this relief is kind of balancing out what would normally be something that's granted to us by right. So this area indicated in orange is kind of a distinction, a calculation between what's deemed as free FAR versus what's included in FAR on the first level. These are sight lines. Probably the most important part of this portion here is the proposed site plan. You'll kind of see how this steps back here. So you have the parking here. We've carved out roughly about 19-20 feet to allow for compact parking spaces and a trash area. This is an elevated buyer retention area that will allow for stormwater management. And then you'll see here that we've embedded a stair core into the project. So the first floor projects, I would say, about 7 or 8 feet past the face of the building at the rear, and there's 6-foot balconies which kind of sit above that but do not project beyond the first floor. Allows for nice outdoor areas for every unit. And then we have a penthouse unit located on the highest floor, which Marty alluded to as contributing. There's a penthouse contribution for affordable, and this follows the normal compliance of 11-foot setbacks off the front and back. This is an existing elevation of the site. These are some breakdowns of the floor plans. You'll see that first level is 4 units. It consists of 4 units, 2 1-bedrooms, three 1-bedrooms and one, 2-bedroom IZ that's located right up here in the front. Every other floor consists of 2 bedrooms and 2-bedroom dens with, large kind of open space living and kitchen, 2 baths, and, kind of ample storage space. You'll see that we have private landings for the elevator that allow someone to step directly into the unit, which makes for a pretty efficient core. Kind of a similar layout in the upper floor. And you go to the penthouse level. We've kind of combined that into a single flat, and it's much larger. It's got good ample outdoor space on the front and back. And then we'll be complying with the green area ratio for green roof, and as I said before, the bioretention planters at the first level. This is a front elevation of what the project will look like. This will not be visible from the front of the building. This is an 11-foot step back here. Mansard really covers any possible visibility from the portion above 1840, and then 1836. We'll have this decorative railing and parapet that will shield this for being visible from the street. But you'll
Looks like battery died, hopefully rejoining soon.
I'll text him and see what's going on. Yeah, I'll text Patrick.
I saw a battery is low come up right before he went out, so might be that. It's our fault for starting 25 minutes late.
One of the things I was gonna tell Pat, how he's logging back in. Here he comes. I was going to mention that penthouse contribution fee is not insignificant. It's because of the value of the property and the low FAR. It's 100 and almost 113,000. That's for the being able to use the penthouse.
That'll go into the housing trust fund.
That goes into the housing production trust fund. Yeah, and that's separate than the IZ unit that's provided in the base building. He says, I'm logging back in. Please finish up for me. Okay, I'll have to go. Let me go grab the plans here and then I can share. Sorry about that.
That's a pretty significant contribution to the housing trust fund.
Yeah, I think that's about the biggest one I've seen. Plans, okay. All right, sharing the screen. Okay. Everyone sees that?
Mm-hmm.
My Adobe's locking up on me here. Okay, I think he was here. On here. These are the floor plans. I know he went past the sightline plan. Sorry, my Adobe's a little slow too. And okay, there's the front elevations. These are the floor plans. What Patrick was saying about the FAR issue in the basement, there's not really a basement. You kind of enter into the first floor, and so there's no below grade free FAR space. A little bit at the back because the elevation from front to back goes up. So a small percentage of the lower level was excluded from FAR, but most of it's included. And so the additional lot occupancy does allow him to get to the full FAR. Here's a rear elevation showing the balconies. Now there's going to be a retaining wall because of that high elevation. There'll be a retaining wall, and there'll be parking spaces where there are not parking spaces now. There's a retaining wall along the alley back there now. So I think that's it. Oh, sorry. So he said, send me the last link, not in his inbox. So I'll resend him the link that Lee sent out. Sorry. Okay, so Patrick should be on soon. Do you still have the screen share, or did you stop it, or did I stop?
Don't see the presentation.
Yep, I believe we stopped it because your
Oh,
email was popping
sorry.
up.
Oh, thanks. Okay. Well, here it is back. But I think that was the end of it there. That's the end of the rear elevations. And Patrick should be getting on now any second. But any questions or any pages you want to look at more closely?
If I remember correctly, this is actually the second presentation we've received about this. So there was some overlapping information from the previous one. So I don't have any questions right now, but I'm opening up to other commissioners in case they have any while we're waiting for Patrick.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Commissioner Valsky, you want to ask
Everyone
your
hear me?
question since get your hands up now?
Patrick, was there anything else? Were you still going with your presentation, or were you about done?
I was about done. I apologize. My laptop just died.
Okay, well then we're going to open up for questions. Commissioner Falaskini, you just had your hand up. Do you have a question?
I did. Yeah, I had a couple. It's a beautiful building. Congrats. I think it fits really well with the neighborhood. The design really seems to just blend in very nicely with everything else around it. So congratulations on the design and the aesthetics.
Thank you.
And that's great that there will be a large donation to the Housing Trust Fund from this. Glad to see it. But one thing that we are, I think, very cognizant of is that the neighborhood is really truly suffering from a lack of affordable family size units. And we've seen a lot of families really kind of driven from the neighborhood because there aren't a lot of family size units. And so to the extent that it is possible, I would love especially to see the IZ unit be a family size unit, or to see any other family size units built into the designs to make sure that we are providing the kind of housing that I think there's a real need for in Adams Morgan in the moment. It's great to see these other the 2 bedrooms, but if there could be even 1 or 2 3-bedroom units that were built into it, I think that would help a lot with some of the issues that we're hearing from constituents about the lack of family size units in the neighborhood.
So the 2-bedroom that we're providing is a net square footage of about 1,100 square feet, so it's closer to 1,250. So it's a pretty sizable 2-bedroom in order to comply with the regulations. It's priced at about 160,000. So it's very affordable. It's great for a young family with, you know, maybe a couple kids that would share one of the rooms, or you know, young single mother with a kid in school. So there's definitely, I would definitely call it a family option. We do have to be cognizant of the financial viability of a project that's this small and providing affordable. So especially with the constraint of, you know, not getting that bonus FAR from having a free seller. And this, if everyone's familiar with how zoning works in DC, you know, generally the placement of you know, retaining wall or something in the front of the building would allow you to get free FAR. We're not getting that. So what we're asking for in relief is really just to get back to a normal by right, you know, allowable density because of the way the grade is in the front. So with that said, you know, I'm pro for sale housing at you know, moderated price points. And you know, it has to coincide with, you know, financial viability too.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Whatever you can do to try to push towards that, I certainly at least would really appreciate it. I don't want to speak for the rest of the commissioners. But congrats. It's a beautiful building.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Horowitz?
Yeah, I will echo Commissioner Falsini's comments about the need for family size units. Can you just remind me how many of the units in the building are 2-bedroom and the various sizes?
So the penthouse level is a 3-bedroom unit. Then there is 6 2 bedrooms with den, which is not really a bedroom. And then there's the 2-bedroom IZ, and then 3 market rate 1-bedrooms on the same floor.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, I'll just echo Commissioner Valskini's comments about the need for family size units and anything you can do to push towards that.
Well, I would like to point out that, you know, the contribution, because of how prominent this neighborhood is, you know, it's $100,000 contribution for the penthouse. So, you know, if it's not in this project, it will go somewhere else. It'll be used, I'm sure, in a very valuable way.
I think I misunderstood. I didn't realize that the 2 bedrooms were 2 bedrooms plus a den. I thought it was a 1-bedroom plus a den. And in my mind, those are in many ways family size units. So I actually see those as fairly compatible with what it is I was hoping for. To the extent that the IZ unit could also be reworked a little bit with that kind of square footage to add in a den or something along those lines to make it a little bit more family friendly, that would be great. But again, that's you know, I'm just going to keep beating on that.
We'll have our design team take a look and see if it's possible.
Appreciate it, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I am someone who spends a lot of time just perusing Zillow in the neighborhood to see what's out there just out of curiosity. I think what you proposed here is above and beyond what I think is a requirement for me to approve this as is. I'm looking around at apartments that are like 600 square feet selling for $500,000. And when I see your drawings of this building with all of their multiple bedrooms and these beautiful outdoor spaces, and just the care that you have put into creating this masterpiece of a building compared to everything else I've seen pass my desk on this committee, is really remarkable. So thank you very much for putting this together. I understand the other commissioners' concerns, but I do not echo them.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments? So you were specifically seeking zoning relief for the FAR, and was there something else? Was it a site?
Not for FAR, no. FAR is okay. It's a special exception for lot occupancy. From 60% to 70%. And because there's no lot occupancy bonus in RA2. There's just the FAR bonus. So we can go to 70% by special exception. The other thing is the parking screening, which basically the way around that would be to put a gate. It's kind of silly. You put in a gate and it interrupts the 20 feet, and then you're okay. We always ask for relief from that because it allows you to have better trash pickup and another parking space usually.
Actually, I wanted clarification on that. Is a screening just a barrier?
Well, it's a screening is a barrier, either a hedge or a fence. It could be anything. But you're allowed, but it's only for openings that are more than 20 feet. So the way we've gotten around it essentially is you have 20 feet and then you put one time, I had a client that put a picket fence that was a foot wide and 4 feet high in the middle. He did that to get his building permit, and then he went to get relief so that it wouldn't look so silly. But and every time I go to the BZA with that one, they're always kind of confused on why that thing exists. I think it was meant more for parking lots, not so much for accessory parking.
That's the feeling I'm getting too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Falskini?
It seems that my only flag right now, it's completely open out to the parking area, correct?
Correct.
And that's what you're seeking. The exception is that it can be completely open.
Marty,
yes.
You want to pull up that site plan real quick? Just so we can
I think I'm having a hard time understanding what specifically it is you're seeking. I'm just having a hard time understanding it.
Yeah, if we can see a plan and or an elevation, that would be very helpful.
My only flag on this is just that there's a fair amount of theft in the back of these buildings. And you might end up wanting to do some sort of barrier just to make sure that folks are more protected and that their cars are more protected. But I don't care whether or not there's a barrier back there for purposes of a special exception. I'm happy to grant it, but you all just might want to have it for your residents, given some of the theft issues that have been happening in Adams Morgan over the last couple of years, and in parking spaces especially.
Yeah, it's certainly something we'll consider.
If you could just talk a little bit with this visualization, what it is specifically you're getting or wanting relief from.
Let me see.
So and maybe it'll be helpful. Let me see if I could pull up the reg.
I'm going to try to annotate this here. So essentially, right? If you can see, does everyone can see that red line?
Yep.
Essentially, what the zoning regulation says is that if there's anything that's greater than 20 feet, right, you have to set a screen or some type of barrier that interrupts that 20 feet. So what we're left with a very tight space in the back is that we have to often erect at a minimum, a 12-inch. It's 12 inches, right, Marty?
It's 12 inches, and there's no height requirement, so it could be 4 feet high.
So it's kind of silly, right? Because just to satisfy the zoning reg, we could theoretically just put a 12-inch wide fence, 4 feet tall, and satisfy it, which just puts pressure on trash pickup or someone getting in and out of their space in a tight alley. So we would rather have that space that is flexible to us to make those adjustments.
Okay, so that makes sense. My next question, and then I'll get to you, Commissioner Horwath. So why does that space exist? Why is there no parking there? Is it just so it's easier to get trash cans out, or?
Correct.
Okay, great. Commissioner Horowitz?
Yeah, just to confirm, so how many spots are you able to put in without the barrier, and with the barrier, I'm guessing you'll lose one spot?
We currently are showing 4 spots right now, which would allow, I can't remember if they're 8 or 9 foot wide, but that would leave about 10 to 12 feet there, in between the parking spaces. If you go back to that site plan, that should show.
I think the plat might be there. I can see that.
Yeah, so we have about 18 feet there.
trying
not
to,
quite enough to get 2 more spaces, and still have an access to the street. So we just opted to just do 4 spaces.
okay, so, yeah, I don't know if we would have lost the space or just, we just lose some size in the spaces, and then also, space for the trash removal.
Great. Well, that
Okay.
And
clarifies.
then frankly, I don't have any problem, like, it doesn't serve any purpose. I don't, and I really don't know why it's there. I think they're gonna fix it at some point, but that could be years.
Okay. Does anybody else need any more points of clarification or have any questions? No? Great. Yeah, so I'm gonna motion to bring this to the full ANC meeting in December, saying that we've approved this zoning relief.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, abstentions, great, wonderful, passes for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, again, this is a beautiful, beautiful project. I am so happy that you are doing this. That is such an eyesore as it is. Please come back to the neighborhood and find more properties to fix up.
We'll be glad to, and just wait till it's done.
I will walk you around this community and we will find properties you can fix up. How about that?
Please let me know. We're happy to help assist any way we can.
Okay, great. So we'll see you at the December meeting.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. That's it for the agenda. So we're all good, Sean.
Thank you.